Good morning again, Mr. Mark Dainty. You are the animal curator at Angkor Wildlife Aquarium, sir.
Yes.
And today we are going to talk about snakes.
Yes.
And also other reptiles that you are, conserving
Working
here
with it.
on yes, sir, in the area.
Yeah.
So this is the reptile house, sir. So
Yeah.
can you tell us, like, is it, the main component, that you firstly put on the area? Is it, an important compound that you need to establish?
So the reptile house was actually built after we opened.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it's been open for just over 1 year now. So it was a new addition after our first year opening. But yes, we wanted to highlight reptile species, in particular Cambodian ones.
So normally most of the reptile here, including the turtles, the snakes,
Yeah.
the crocodile.
Crocodile,
So they are from the Mekong area, sir.
From Cambodia, yes.
From Cambodia.
So we do have a few species in here which aren't from Cambodia,
Yes,
just
sir.
to show a few different ones. But yeah, most are totally Cambodian.
So, sir, yes, in this area, I don't think it is that big. But so, can you tell me what are the reptiles that you put here, sir? How many types are there?
How many types? So in here we have around, or we currently house around 27 species of reptiles, and in total we have around 60 animals.
60
of
animals,
reptiles.
sir.
Yeah, not all in here. We have the crocodiles and the turtles outside also.
Yes, sir. So, do you specifically, selected them from the Mekong River, in order to display here? Some of them are significant in their presence.
Yeah.
So,
we want to teach people about their importance,
Yes, sir.
and why we want to care for them and their environment. So we picked some species that are very common, some species that you see all the time, because we want to display and explain about them. And then we picked some also that are more dangerous. Of course, there's
Like
some
the King
venomous
Cobra,
snakes, yes, and some which are rarer that we need to do some research with and look at how we can conserve better. Yeah.
so not all of them are endangered. That's what you mean.
Not all. Cambodia has some very endangered reptile species. So species such as the royal turtle, the Siamese crocodile, the elongated tortoise. These are all critically endangered, which means it's their last chance for us to save them now before they disappear.
Yes, sir.
So yes, we do have some very endangered, but a lot, especially the snake species, are not considered too endangered. Yeah.
So snakes are normally what you call, they do quite good in the city areas, sir.
Some species can do, yeah. So we the way humans live actually attracts some snake species. So we create a lot of rubbish, and therefore we get a lot of mice and rats, and these are all
Rodents.
rodents that a lot of snake species like to eat. So we can increase the numbers by the way we live, and also like the Puatoke, which is a specialist in feeding on mostly geckos.
Geckos,
And if you see in town or where people live with electricity and the lights on, we have lots of geckos attracted to that, and therefore can attract those species as well. So some do well around people, and then others not so well. They live in the forest, and need the proper forest to survive, like the King Cobra.
Because most of the food are in the forest for them, sir.
Yeah, and some species just can't deal with being around people. We're the problem. Some
sir.
can adapt, not all can adapt.
Yes, sir. So can you bring us to some of the species of the reptile that you say they are becoming rarer?
Terrari, yeah. So this one here is this is the King Cobra, so a very iconic snake.
Also, they do not open the head yet.
No,
They don't always do
they
that.
only open the hood when they're threatened or concerned, and they want to make themselves look big. So we leave them alone. It's just a threat. They're communicating with us to leave them alone.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, this is an adult female. So the males get bigger than this. But these guys generally don't do that great amongst people, like some of the other species. And they need some good forest to survive and to breed. So they can't survive in the rice field. They
So
may go
what you
into
mean
it
is
to
that
eat.
they don't eat rodent like other snakes, no?
King Cobras pretty much only eat other snakes.
Eat other snakes.
Yes, so they're actually not they're a good one to have around. They eat other venomous snakes as well. So some of the snakes that cause us a lot of problems for snake bite, these guys actually eat them, and they help to keep their numbers down. So they can be very useful.
So the reason why they are becoming, lesser in number is because
Less forest.
the rest of forest.
Yeah, the more forest we chop down, the less animals we have, for sure.
But you said if they eat snakes and other snakes that do not eat king cobra, they might live in the city. So why is it hard for them to eat the snakes that live in the city, sir?
They cannot deal around people.
So like
They need to be away from people.
so it's just their behavior. That's what you mean.
Also, most people, if they see a dangerous snake like this, so they come into, around where people live or in the city, like Siem Reap,
They will eliminate them.
They kill them, yes. So they prefer to stay out the way of people in the forest.
I see, sir. So how endangered is the king cobra? So like, are their number very dwindling very fast?
So a lot of animals are ranked under different categories of how endangered they are or not. And so king cobras are currently considered vulnerable, which means there is cause for concern. Their numbers are decreasing, but they're not at a state yet where like I mentioned about critically endangered. This is the other end of the spectrum. This is we need to act right now. So they are protected by Cambodian law as well, but they're not too rare just yet.
I see, sir. And you also mentioned the royal turtle, sir. So what is it about the royal turtle that?
So the royal turtle right now in Cambodia is only surviving in one river, in the Siam River in Koh Kong.
Koh Kong, sir.
Yes, that's the only river it can be found in now. It used to be widespread in Cambodia. So there's always different reasons for this. Sometimes more than one. So we have a lot of fishing activity in the area, and the turtles get caught in nets and they drown. And so this is for sure is a big issue. And we have an issue with the sand dredging as well. We take a lot of the sand away from the river systems now, and this one needs it to lay the eggs inside. Right, so the females will dig big holes in the sand beach to lay their eggs. But we've removed most of these areas now, so they're not breeding in any good numbers anymore. And all this means is their population decreases. So now they're very, very rare.
Yes, sir. So how did you find this turtle before it comes to AWA, sir?
So these turtles, so there's a female down here, there's a male there. So these two came to us from the Fisheries Administration. But they're actually part of a program initiated by WCS, who actually work in Koh Kong. So there's an effort to conserve this species, and what they do is they take eggs that are laid on the sand. They'll take them into their center, hatch them, and grow them on in the center, and then release when they're bigger. This helps more adults survive. We call it head starting, because babies get eaten by a lot of things. So if you release them when they're bigger like this, they have much more chance to survive and to breed as adults. So these two came from that project. So we have just two here for to display to people, so people can learn about them, and of course we want to breed them as well. These are too young to breed yet.
But if you breed them first when they're still young in, let's say, captivity, and then you will deploy them later when they're bigger, does it interfere with their instinct, or anything like that?
With reptiles are a lot easier than most. So with mammals and birds, yes, for sure, that is a big issue. It's one of the biggest issues. Releasing captive stuff into the wild is more difficult because they're used to people, and wildlife that is used to people is much more in danger. They get captured easy or killed.
Yes,
but reptiles generally do pretty good. They're very instinctive animals. So far, turtles we release and our crocodile project in Siem Pang, more than 2 years now, and we still have crocodiles there. So they're catching fish, they're feeding themselves, and they're avoiding conflict with humans so they don't get killed. So for reptiles, it's a lot easier to release projects.
Yes, sir. But besides, let's say, the sand dredging, process that eliminate the population of the royal turtle, is there any other, human activities that contribute to their
there's
numbers?
lots. So like I say, fishing activities are a big issue because they do get captured in nets and then they drown. And many things like pollution, all indirect things like,
climate change,
pollution into the rivers,
like
plastic. Maybe they eat plastic that we put in the river and it can kill them. So there's never just one issue.
Yes, sir.
But the biggest two are the sand issues and the fishing.
Yes, sir. So at AWA, you only have 2 royal turtles.
So far, Right now, we only have 2. We only have this one enclosure for these. But I mean, in the future, I'm hoping we can get more and we can do a bigger breeding facility for this species.
Yes, sir. But because you have one male and female, is it your intention to make them reproduce?
Yeah. If I mean, they're too young. These ones get very big before breeding age, so they take quite a long time to become mature to breed. So this female's not big enough yet, but when she is, if she lays eggs here, we will incubate them to hatch, grow the babies on, and give the babies probably back to WCS for their project to release back.
Yes, sir. So how old are these, sir? Like for me, it's quite big already, so they still get bigger than this, sir.
Yeah, so the biggest one I ever worked with was around 35 kilo.
35 kilo.
35 kilo, and she was
half a meter.
69, 70 centimeter long shell, yeah. So, but she's like 70 years old. So they can live a very long time as well, these guys. So.
Some people say they can live up to more than 100 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I think the oldest one of this species we know is that individual in a 70s, but can probably live longer than that also.
I see, sir. So they are now having quite a happy life in their protected areas, sir.
Yeah, I mean, they behave pretty much like we expect them to, and it's nice for people to be able to see such a rare animal. We keep in this nice clear water so people can come and see the animals, right?
Yes, sir.
So, yeah.
But just a quick question, sir, because in the wild, it is hard to see this animal by our own eyes because the water is a bit milky and
they're very rare.
Yeah, very rare also. So if people were to go to the wild, how would they spot it? So like, what are the efforts that you need to see this animals?
I mean, to see this animal in the wild is extremely difficult. So even the people that work with them, so the NGOs that work in Kokong and in the Sarambo River with these, they rarely see the turtles. They may find their eggs because they can follow the tracks from where the animals have been on the sand at the right time of year.
So the mother does not protect the eggs?
No, once she's laid the egg, she goes back into the water.
Okay.
So the babies hatch and they're on their own from day one. So you can find nests through, we know what time of year they breed, and then you can follow the tracks. So they've been doing that quite successful now for quite a long time. Of course, a lot of local people know these skills. People have been eating royal turtle eggs for many, many years, right? So they know how to find them. But to actually see them in the water, in the wild, is extremely rare.
So it is not easy as here that we can just look at them and then,
of course,
for every day.
Because we keep our water clear, so you can see everything.
Yes, sir. And you also mentioned that there's a species of snake that live exclusively in the Tonle Sap Lake, sir.
Yes. So there's many aquatic snake species living in Tonle Sap Lake. But this one in particular is what we call endemic, so it only lives in the Tonle Sap Lake.
Yes, sir.
Which means it can be under some pressure, because if this snake disappears from Tonle Sap, then it goes extinct. It doesn't have a second home. And currently they're traded in huge numbers for food. So for crocodile farming, and now, more recently, people eating also. They're captured in the fishing nets and sold in the markets quite cheap.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So they do not live on land, sir? They lay their eggs in water?
These guys will come to land, but they're mostly aquatic. So they most of the time they live like this. So they may come to land just to, in the dry season, when the flooded forests dry up and they become muddy, then they may do. This one is what we want to do more research on, because we don't actually know where they go in the dry season, whether they go back into the deep part of the lake or whether they go in under the mud into the.
So there's no sufficient tracking activity.
Yeah, they're very difficult. The species like this are very hard. You can't track them, so we can't with our crocodiles who release.
You put the GPS.
You can put a GPS on it, which we can't really do this with snakes. We can do some tagging, but then snakes that live in the water, it's more difficult to do. So we need to do a bit of research on this species, exactly how it lives. Once we learn exactly how it lives, it becomes a lot easier to help it and to help.
Because we know where they do,
we know
what they do, where they go.
Yeah, and we get a better understanding of what the threats are if we know exactly how they need to live.
Yes, sir. So the main issue that contribute to their decline is, fishing, overfishing.
Just over
or
hunting.
overfishing.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, pretty much just that. I mean, the forests around Tonle Sap are also being depleted. We chop a lot of forest down and burn it to make way for farming land.
Yes,
so when these flooded forests are gone, species like this, we're pretty sure that they need the flooded forest to breed. And this is the time of year when they have babies inside the flooded forest. So of course, that's an issue as well. But mostly, it's just a huge harvest every year from the fishing nets. Yeah.
So even though their artificial habitat here represents something like a mangrove,
yes.
it's not technically a mangrove, no?
Yes, like a freshwater mangrove, yeah. So there's a lot of tree roots, a lot of plants, aquatic plants, and this is what they live amongst like this. And then when the fish come too close, of course, they eat the fish.
But they lay their eggs in water or on land, sir? This one?
These guys don't lay eggs.
They gave birth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't need to worry about that.
The hatching or anything.
Yeah.
Yes. But another question, because it is a bit hard to imagine because, snakes sometimes they are quite mysterious. They don't show up all the time.
Yeah.
And, people, when they see snakes, they often run away.
Yeah,
Some they catch, but some they often run away. So, sometimes the common people do not know a lot about snakes. So, in terms of the, ecological, let's say, system or food chain, food web, something like that. So, I know, when one species disappear, they will contribute like a domino effect to other species. So how about snake? What if they disappear?
Well, the easiest example we can give is there's a lot of quite common snakes that live amongst us that are just rodent feeders. So we have ones that we call rat snakes. We call them rat snakes because they predominantly eat rats, mice, and these sorts of things. So if you imagine without any of those species around, the numbers of rats and mice we would have, with nothing keeping them in check.
Yes.
We would have rodents everywhere. And rodents, of course, bring us disease, and they spread different diseases. So that's just one good example of what a good job they're doing. They keep those pest species down.
But how about, the one in the wild, sir? Like, the one that does not keep the rodents that disturb, the people in check, but they live in the wild, they eat something natural.
But it is natural still. That's from a human point of view. Yeah. But in the forest side, let's forget about humans. It's the same balance. That ecological balance is very important. It's developed over millions and millions and millions of years.
It's so intricate.
Yeah. Yes. So any change in that can have a massive impact. And sometimes impacts that we don't know about until it's too late or until after because we don't fully understand yet. So something that's taken that many millions of years to find that balance, and then we can make a snake species, for example, extinct very quickly in time because of the way humans are, and then this can have a massive impact. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned just now, not all snakes are the same, even though they look very similar, but the way they live, the way they eat, the way they reproduce, they're also very different, sir.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the wild, how do this snake live? You said just now that you don't know a lot about them, sir. So do they migrate? They come to eat at what time or something like that? Like, what is their daily life, sir, let's say?
Well, their daily life is mostly spent around aquatic vegetation like this, where what they try and do is hide and look like a tree root. And this makes it easier for them to catch their food, right?
Because they stay still.
Yeah. And this is predominantly what we think they do for most of the day is keeping safe, so staying out the way of anything that wants to eat you and trying to find food. Those are most common activities.
So it doesn't mean that they stay still because they stay in a small box, no? Even though they stay in the wild, maybe they do more or less the same.
Yeah, they live the same. Yeah.
Yes, sir. But are snakes, very sensitive to territorial claims? Like, tigers, are they very sensitive? Snakes?
A little bit less, or we think so. We don't really know much about snake communication. There's a lot of Snakes communicate a lot with pheromones. So
Or like ants, like
hormones and
hormones.
sense. It's all about smell and taste, like this. So that's a kind of difficult thing for us to kind of understand too much. But we never see territorial issues keeping snakes together like this. You know, we never see fighting like this. Some species, yes. Cannibalistic King Cobra I was telling you about. I can't put two in there because one will probably eat the other one. And for sure, males will come and combat at the breeding time of year to decide who gets to mate.
Oh, really?
So it's kind of territorial.
Okay.
But they won't fight. They don't bite each other. They don't damage each other. They just like wrestle. And the bigger, stronger one will get the right to mate the female. The other one will be defeated.
So they don't
and move
damage
on.
each other.
Yeah, they don't damage each other. Yeah.
Okay, sir. But you know, like you said, so they stay still and then, you know, they wait for food to come. So these small shrimps or fish is not really a food for them. No.
Yeah, this is their food.
Oh, okay.
The shrimps not. The shrimps come with the plants. They just live in here and they help to clean up their little pieces. But these small fish that are inside, yes, this is what they eat, yeah. They can eat bigger fish than this one. It's quite small. But yeah.
Okay, sir. So yes, Mr. Mark Dainty. So not all species are, you know, endangered all the time because they can adapt very well to human settlement sometimes. So this one you said causes the most problem for, you know, Cambodian people in living in the countryside, sir.
Yes. So we have, there's a few different venomous snake species in Cambodia which cause problems with people. But this is probably the biggest culprit because it lives around rice fields or agricultural fields where a lot of people are working. And it mainly relies on camouflage. So it doesn't run away when it sees you, it just stays still and hopes you don't see it. And the problem is people don't see them. They're very well camouflaged, and if you stand on it, then it will defend itself and bite you.
So what you mean is that snakes have different habit for flight and fight response?
Yeah, so some are very quick. And before you even realize they're there, they've run away. They don't want conflict with people.
Because they're non-venomous? Not necessarily.
Oh, some are venomous, but some are faster moving. These aren't fast moving over ground. They're very fast at biting.
Okay.
To strike, but over a long distance, they're not very fast. So then they just rely more on the camouflage than to
So they can
escape.
go as a quick burst.
Yes, but not very far.
They're not a good malformed.
Yeah, so you can see how big body. They're not long and slender. Those snakes tend to be a bit faster. These guys are quite big but short.
So normally they would stay still. I mean, if you step on them, they will attack you.
Of course,
something like
If we stand on them, of course, they defend themselves and they'll bite.
Even though it is unintentional from us.
He doesn't know that.
Instinctive.
And even if it's unintentional, you can hurt the snake, damage the snake. So yeah, of course, it defends itself. You think we are big predators to all of these animals, right? So this is why snakes defend themselves against us, because they just fear they're going to be killed and eaten.
But how do you know that they are very venomous? Like how do you measure the venom? So based on the quantity, the chemical strength?
Yeah, so we know what's in this venom now because there's been a lot of work done to study venoms in labs now, so we know what's in them, and we also know because they cause a lot of deaths, and even if you don't die, the injuries from this one is terrible. So we can see, people often lose the arm or the leg. So we know it's very toxic, and we know that the toxins specifically aim at attacking your flesh and the blood. And these ones leave very big wounds. And
so they can be deadly, fatal.
Yes,
also.
yes.
Okay, so and also you have this one which is also smaller.
Yeah.
But they are also quite
these
venomous also. So.
Yeah, so these are similar to the other one. In as much as they rely on camouflage, they don't move too much, and people do often stand on them or accidentally, touch them with the hand because they don't see them. You can imagine with the colour in amongst the leaves on the forest floor, they're very difficult to see.
So these normally live in every area in Cambodia, so they are very common.
Yeah, we don't seem to get them around like Siem Reap city so much. But yeah, not far out, we start to see these. And if you go to the south or the east side, there's a lot. So yeah, the main difference between some snakes and in how they eat is how they procure their food, how they catch their food. So we have snakes like the King Cobra are active in the day, diurnal, and they're active hunters. So this one, when it sees a snake, will actually chase over to it and catch it. So they can be very quick and they move a lot when catching food. With some of the other species, the shorter, fatter-bodied snakes, the Russell's viper, the Malayan pit viper, these ones rarely move and they wait for food to come to them, right? So there's a very different way of getting your food source. Yeah.
Yes, sir. But just a quick question again, sir. What if they were small, like they were baby cobras? So what do they eat if they are so small?
Baby snakes.
So baby cobras eat other baby snakes?
Yeah. This is why so a lot of animals have evolved to breed at the same time of year. So when the rains come, we have eggs hatch, we have a lot of baby animals all at the same time. And that ensures that they all have something to eat.
So nature select them to be like that, and they have been living like that for I don't know, forever. So.
Forever, yes. Yeah. So this is why when the first rains in Cambodia, all the frogs come out. And the big noise from the frogs, they breed, they have lots of babies.
Cicadas, crickets, so those are...
And then that all of those things provide food for something else, which provides food for something else. And so it's a food chain, right? So this is why the start of the rainy season in Cambodia is like an explosion of life, right? Everything, eggs hatch, give birth to young animals.
So normally snakes and of course other animals, they will reproduce or maybe lay eggs in a very, let's say, specific area so that the young will, hatch or become, bigger in that, let's say, fasting period of the year. So.
Yeah, so they will breed certain times of year. There's more helpful for them to survive. And yeah, they will lay eggs in certain areas where the eggs are more safe. And also reptile eggs are very delicate and the temperature and the humidity need to be right for them to survive.
So it takes more effort than chicken eggs and duck eggs, something like that.
Yeah, so it takes less parental care. So a chicken will actually sit on her eggs and move them around and roll them. So this takes quite a lot from the mom. Snakes generally just lay eggs and go, and they just leave them.
They don't look after the eggs?
No. The King Cobra is the only snake that builds a nest. So she will actually, with all the leaves, she will build a mound nest and she will stay protected. But they're the only snake that does that. Most of the snakes will find, most often, something like a termite mound. Go inside, lay the eggs.
Frog mound? Frog hole or something like that?
Yeah. Somewhere that's safe to lay the eggs. The conditions are correct. So not too hot, not too cold, and not too dry. And then they leave them. And when the babies hatch, they never live with their mom or anything. They know how to survive from the first day.
Yes, sir. But because from what you say, king cobras are quite, let's say not intelligent, but they do something more than other snakes. So is it because is it that is the reason why you call them king cobra?
The reason they're called king cobras is because they eat other cobras.
Just
so
like
they're king of cobras. Also, they're the largest venomous snake in the world. So they get a name like a king cobra. But they are also probably the most intelligent snake. So they do a lot more than what we perceive other species as being less intelligent.
So what do you mean by intelligence, sir? So for example, the first one might be the way they protect the young, the way they build the nest. Is that count as intelligent?
Yes, but also how they react with us. This snake here, for instance, if I want to go in here to do something, I can enter here, and with the snake hook, I can move her around, and she now knows I want her to go into there.
So they learn?
Yes, she can learn. Not many snakes can do that, but king cobras can do that. So,
not just only that specific cobra, the species as a whole.
Yeah, so cobras are generally a little bit more intelligent than some of the other species,
Yes, sir. So in the wild, cobras are quicker than others? you said they go after food. They don't just wait for food to come to
Yes,
them.
so they're active hunters, which means they need to be quite fast to catch their food.
Even though, despite their heavy weight, they're relatively heavy weight compared to other venomous snakes.
Yes, but that's just because they're so big. They're very long as well. She's around 3.5 meters, so she's quite a long snake. But yeah, they can move extremely fast when they want, either to catch food or to defend themselves. Also, if we threaten them, she can move very fast to defend herself against us.
Yes, sir. So maybe we can get a bit closer to. So, sir, king cobras, when they attack other snakes, do they use their venom to?
Yeah.
They use oh.
Yeah, they will bite onto the snake and inject a lot of venom into it, and the venom is what will kill the snake. Then the snake will eat it. So for this species also, we've observed different methods of killing depending on what snake species they're eating. So this is very interesting because again, we don't really see that so much with snakes. So if this one needs to kill a python, it will attack it differently than if it needs to kill a little rat snake. That can't
How
hurt it.
differently? Like they inject more venom
They
at longer
bite
duration?
at different areas. So if this one catches a rat snake, she will grab it behind the head here and hold on to it until it's dead. But a python is a very dangerous snake for her. So she would bite it around the heart area and then go away and wait for it to die, because the python could potentially damage her.
But how can she eat something bigger than her size? Like a python is normally bigger.
She can't eat like an adult python like this one, for sure not. But smaller ones, yes, she can. And they can eat pretty much something the same size of themselves.
I see, sir. But for example, their venom. So every snake's venom are different in chemical composition. Even though the same venomous snakes, they are. For example, if a person get bitten and then you look after their blood test or something, do you know which exact species contribute to that venom, sir?
So what we can do now is something is a quick test when you go to hospital, but it can't tell you exactly what species bitten you, but it does tell you what antivenom you need, and that's the important part, right? So we pretty much say there's two types of venoms. So the cobras and the kraits, she's yawning. The cobras and kraits have what we call a neurotoxic venom. So we have an antivenom, which is designed for those neurotoxic venoms. And then we have a hemotoxic, which is like the pit vipers that destroys your tissue. And the test in the hospital can tell you which one of those it is, and then you can get given the correct antivenom. That's the most important. So we can't tell exact what species from it, no. But just how to treat it, yes.
Yes, sir. But in the wild, how do they normally eat? Like, do they eat like 3 times a day like human being, or they eat like a big snake and then they stay for a week?
Again, that's different for all species. They're all slightly different. So yeah, as you mentioned, like a big python may eat a big animal, and that will last it for a few weeks. Whereas we have, like king cobras seem to have a lot higher metabolism, and so they will eat more frequently. So it depends on what the species and what they're eating.
Yes, sir. But this one is a female.
Yeah.
Around 3 meters that you mentioned, how much time does it take in order to grow at that rate, sir?
Yeah, so
and how long can they get? Their maximum body size.
She's probably about as big as she will get now. They can get a little bit bigger, but the males get much bigger. So king cobra males can get to 6 meters. So they can get really big. Females generally stay smaller. But their actual growth rate, they're quite fast-growing species. So she could reach this size in a matter of 3 or 4 years. From hatching to this size. And then once they're adult size, their growing slows down a lot, so she doesn't seem to kind of get any bigger now.
Yes,
but when they're younger, as long as there's a good food source, they will grow very, very fast.
Yes, sir. But at what year does she reaches maturity and able to reproduce? And in her lifetime, like how much time can she reproduce?
So With reptiles, it's not really an age. It's more about size. When you get to adult size, you can reproduce. So depending on how quickly she gets to that size, depends on how old she can be before she matures. But yeah, at 3 to 4 years old, these can breed already. And we think they live for around 20 years, maybe a little bit longer. And she will breed for most of that time, from mature until she's too old to breed.
So how much eggs per reproduction cycle?
So they breed once a year. And again, the amount of eggs really depends on the size of the female. Bigger animals tend to have more eggs. But she would lay around 15 to 20 eggs in a nest each year.
I see. Wow. But you said she will open her hood when she is threatened. So males cobras and females cobras, they all have big hoods.
Yeah, they all have the same, but they don't normally do it unless they have to.
So for example, we are sitting right next in front of her.
Yeah.
She does not open the hood.
She's used to this now because she sees people a lot on this side of the glass. If I open that door there, she will spread her hood.
Is that the hood, sir?
A little bit. Yeah.
A little bit of her hood.
Yeah. You see, she's more intelligent. You can see it. The way she's looking around, the way she moves, in her eyes, you can see she's thinking, she's intelligent. That python doesn't give me the same feeling. If I look at this python, it doesn't look like it's thinking as much. It just, that's what it does. So for me, king cobras, you can see intelligence in the way they act.
But just a different question, sir. Does the length or the weight of the snakes contribute to their, let's say, their mobility, sir? Like, for example, bigger snakes, are they necessarily better in the wild? No,
so they're all designed specifically for how they live. So the food they eat, where they live, and how they live. So no, not one better than the other.
Yeah,
no. They're all different, and they all have a unique sort of system to their life, and they've evolved the best for that. So, so to be big and heavy suits the life of a big python.
Yes, sir.
But like the poor tokay again needs to be long and slender and fast to catch its geckos. So it suits it. No good being this big if you need to catch a gecko.
Yes, sir. But again, because the question and the answers are aimed for general public. So how do you know a snake is a female or a male? You look at which characteristics?
Yeah, so for most species you can't tell by looking at them. But so king cobras, we know about the size. So I know she's female because of her size. The males get much bigger heads. But in general, like if this was a younger python, it's very difficult to tell. So we can do something what is actually called probing.
Probing.
Yeah, and this means we open the tail and we insert a metal probe inside and see how far it goes in. If it only goes in like this far, it's female. If it goes in further, it's male.
So this one is also very venomous.
Yes.
Compared to the king cobra, they are still venomous.
So technically, this one is more toxic in its venom than the king cobra. So its venom is more toxic than this one. But this one has a lot more venom because they're bigger. So it doesn't really make much difference. Once an animal is as dangerous as this one, they're just both dangerous.
So, for example, the monocled?
Monocled.
Monocled cobra, so they produce lesser venom.
They're smaller than this one, right? So they don't have as much venom, but they still have a lot. And it is very toxic, yes.
Okay, sir.
This one, I need to take out today, and we will because it has some skin. It just shed the skin, but not all of it's come off. So I need to help her. So I need to take her out and peel it off.
So the reason why they shed their skin because
because they're growing.
They're growing, I think some crab, no, not crab, maybe.
Yeah. So
snail,
so if they similar, So they have like an exoskeleton, and when they grow, they need to get rid of that, because they get too big. snakes shed their skin not so differently to like we do, but they just do it all in one.
But
So we lose skin cells all
yes,
the time.
all the time, hair, you know,
But they do it all in one.
Yeah. So do you study their shedded skin, sir? Like, does it produce any information that we can learn from them?
Yeah, more so that we need to make sure when they shed the skin that they shed all of the skin. And in particular with cobras, king cobras in particular, sometimes they find it difficult to remove the eye cap.
Like that one, yeah.
No, this one has gone into shed now. That's why I had the colour. They go like a blue colour before they shed. So this one will probably shed in the next 4 or 5 days. But yeah, if the eye cap doesn't come off with the shed, it can cause problems. So that's one of the main things I look for. Because if it doesn't come off, I will catch them and we'll take it off.
So in the wild, you know, the time that they shed their skin is a vulnerable time for them to be alive.
Most of the time when they shed their skin, they go to hide somewhere where no one can find them, like you know, in a hole underground or something like this. Yeah.
I see.
Because also, this one's going to shed the skin now. So you see the colour in the eye? It means you can't see very well at the minute. And if you can't see very well, it's very delicate, right? So it's
So how much do they shed per year, sir?
depending on the size. So again, the babies grow faster. So once every 4 to 6 weeks, they'll shed a lot. And then this one, about every 2 months, maybe she will shed. So when they're bigger, a lot less.
I see, sir. So yes, sir, because you said, you know, even though snakes are quite instinctive, but they also care a lot about where they live, maybe. So, you know, the main thing that I come here in the reptile house of AWA, sir, the thing that I noticed from a human perspective is that it's a bit dark. So does it contribute to the snake livelihood?
Well, we keep it's dark in the center around here because we want people's attention to go into the enclosures. So if the enclosures themselves aren't dark, there's a lot of light units running across the top. So
yes, sir.
But yeah, so what we want to do is try and recreate as much as possible where they live in the wild and how they live in the wild, and then this will help them to live in captivity happier.
But you know, the small area does not affect their mood, their habit.
Well, the small area doesn't seem to affect snakes too much. But yeah, I mean, if we can give bigger, we try to as well. I mean, like this snake, we could keep in a very small enclosure. She would probably be okay, but we have the space, so we give her a nice big one instead.
So snakes does not have, you know, to spend time, you know, exercising or, you know, spending energy.
Not as much like big pythons like this. No, they don't generally move around too much. Some of the smaller snakes do. Like the snakes that have to go hunting small lizards, and they move a lot more. Yeah,
yes,
so
sir.
it just depends what species.
Yes, sir. But also the environment that you offer them. For example, you have dead leaf here. And of course, there's no tree here. So you need to introduce the dead leaf, the mud, the water.
So the substrate, like the soil, the leaf, it's just about where they come from in the world. So, and it's not just for them, it's also for the people. The people come here and...
They want to see something natural. Yeah,
well, and also it's about teaching people. So even without, you know, we have a lot of information on science here, but unfortunately, not everybody reads the science. But just by looking at this enclosure, we know the habitat that king cobras live in, just because we get that from viewing it correctly. So we always try and match the habitat to where they're from in the wild.
Yes, sir. But at the same time, you know, if they do not do a lot of, let's say, activity, you know, for example, you mentioned before, tigers, they can be a bit overweight because, you know, they don't want to move. So snakes, if you feed them and then they stay still, they get overweight.
If you feed them too much, yes.
They can get overweight also.
This snake, when I first got her, she was overweight. And she still is a bit now. The problem with a snake is once they become overweight as an adult, it's very difficult to get them to back to a good shape. So she's been kept in small enclosure and fed way too often. We feed her every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks she gets a chicken.
Like an entire chicken?
An entire chicken, yeah. And that's fine for every 2 weeks. But I think where she was before, she was on a display similar to this. And I think people like to see them eat. So the owners tend to feed them more so people can see it. But then, of course, they get fat. And it's not healthy for them. But
Mr. Mark Dainty, for example, like what if we feed them, you know, small chunk, but more often instead of big chunk?
It's unnatural for a snake to eat anything that's not whole. Everything they eat in the wild, they have to eat it whole. They have no arms chop it up or anything.
Or to chew, no.
Yeah, so this is why snakes have evolved to eat big items like that. So no, in captivity, we don't then go and chop the food into smaller items. It's natural for her to catch a big food item, spend several days digesting it, and then probably not eat for another few months. So that's natural.
Even though you offer another chicken, the snake just ignore the chicken.
No. She would eat way too much. We don't because we don't want her to get fat. But in the wild, that's completely natural because she might not come across another food item for 1 or 2 months. And what happens in the wild is what is natural. And in general, that's what's best for the animal. So again, we will try and replicate that.
Yes, sir. But how about, for example, how do you determine how much they eat? Do you have, like formula to calculate the amount?
We can work out through body weight, and we can feed a percentage of body weight. So yes, we can do that. But for these guys, it's just about knowing how they are in the wild, and how often they eat in the wild, and then we try and match that to here. So
yes, sir.
The small snakes over there, which eat small lizards or frogs, these we know eat very regular. So we feed them 2-3 times a week. But for her, we know that's not natural. So
yes,
we
sir.
give her a big food item, and then we leave her for some time. So they're all slightly different.
Yes, sir. But at the same time, how do you know if they're sick? Again, the basic question, because you need to keep them healthy, sir. So how do you know that they are healthy? How do you know that they are not healthy?
Okay, so for snakes, quite often, if a snake is stressed or unhealthy, it'll stop eating.
That is the first sign.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of animals are the same. Stress or sick, they refuse food. So we can judge it as we're keeping them. Obviously, when we feed, if they're feeding very good, they're very hungry and they're eating, then we generally see that they're okay. And then of course there's physical signs as well. We check, the eyes.
The pupil.
We check, or they're in the mouth. If we handle them, we can see inside the mouth, so make sure there's no infections or anything like that. So we can do a visual health check. But yeah, mostly we go on behavior. So behaving like we know is normal for them, and they're eating well. In general, they're in pretty good condition.
So for example, just an example, if they don't feel well, maybe they go to the corner, they try to curl up, they try to avoid contact. Is that one?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, but it's difficult because she looks like she's doing that anyway.
But so, it doesn't mean that she's unhealthy.
No. It's just how this species acts quite often. So it can be challenging to tell if the snake's okay or not. And like I said, the most common way we do and the easiest is if it's feeding well, it's got to feel good before it will eat.
So do they have any sign or maybe let's say physical display that allows them to know that they are sick on their skin or something like that?
Yeah, it depends what the sickness is. I mean, yes. Reptiles can get skin infections and things like this, and then it's like us. We can physically see it. So there's easy to.
So what are the skin infections, like a virus, a fungus, bacteria, something like that? So?
Bacterial skin infections. Yeah. So let's say if one got a small cut or a wound, and the bacteria get in, and then it grows and grows, and they can get abscess. So the abscess where we get swelling. But those are easy because we can see them. We can physically see them. So they're pretty easy to try to spot them as early as possible, and then we can treat them.
I see, sir. But, for example, vaccination or maybe medicine, how do you do that for snakes?
Vaccination, we don't do for snakes.
So there's no vaccination for snakes?
No. But for medical treatment, our vets are here today. So this is our vet day. So if I have any concerns about anyone, we will take a closer look at them, and we'll go through. And then if we have anything that's an issue, we can then look at medicines. So for snakes, what we generally do, most medicines are injectable because they don't eat all the time. So if we take medicine, we take tablet, we can take 2 or 3 times a day. We can't do that with snakes. So generally, if they have to have a course of antibiotic or anything like that, we give them in an injectable form, and we.
You mean like through the syringe,
yes.
something like that?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Just a question out of a curiosity, sir. For example, normal animal, their limbs, we have legs and fingers and stuff like that. So, it is easy to know how much damage, let's say, an animal can handle. For example, if a dog loses a leg, maybe it's not going to die. They, just three-legged dog. But how about snakes, sir? They're just like a long noodle. So how much damage can they sustain, sir, in the wild, let's say?
I mean, so a lot of a snake's body houses very vital internal organs all the way down.
All the way from the...
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to ours, but just in line. Which means that any big injury over that area of the body is very dangerous, of course. It's going to damage them. The tails can be,
chopped off?
Yeah, like a lot of snakes in the wild, you'll see the tails are not as long as they should be, where something maybe grabbed it.
So they don't regenerate?
No. No, some lizards will regenerate tails like the geckos, but snakes don't. So these get chopped off or bitten off by something trying to eat it. So the tail is quite can take some damage.
Yeah, they can be.
But the head and everything else below, because it houses those vital organs, they can't take too much damage.
Yes, sir. So, for example, the vital organ like lungs, livers, spleen, stomach. So they are all along the line of the body, or they stay, closer to the head more, sir?
No, so it's similar to us, but because of the shape of a snake, it's kind of just evolved to go like this. So we have 2 kidneys each side. Yeah. This one will have a kidney here and a kidney there.
Oh, so it's like perpendicular. In parallel line.
Yeah. So just so everything fits, but we're pretty similar biologically. They only have pretty much one functioning lung instead of 2 like us. They have 2 lungs, but one of them is very, very small and doesn't really do too much. The other one almost goes the whole length of the body. And this again is just so it fits better. So it's a similar design to us, just in a tube.
So even though they're intestinal tract, they are more like longer tube along their body.
Yeah,
they don't go wiggle.
Yeah, well, they do. Yeah, so they go similar like ours. All the way. Yeah, because they need a long digestive tract. So it can't just go like this. This is why it's shaped like this. It's trying to fit as the maximum length in as possible.
Yes, so as in here, sir, because they live in the artificial environment, is it easy to breed them normally?
Again, depending on the species. So this species is quite easy to breed, the Burmese python. So if I put a male with her at the correct time of year, they would mate and she would lay eggs, and I can take those eggs, incubate and hatch. So for things like pythons, they're quite easy to breed. Cobras also quite easy to breed. And then some are more difficult. So some that we don't know too much about, like the Tonle Sap water snake.
Yes, sir.
This one, we will keep them together, and if they do breed, that's great. But we need to watch exactly what happens, because we don't know about their breeding habits yet. So these ones are a bit more difficult.
Yes, sir. But about the color of their skin, does it show something to other snakes, or maybe?
Not so much to other snakes, but so most of it's camouflage. But there are some snakes have warning colors, or sort of thing, and this is a form of communication. It's to tell you to leave me alone. I'm dangerous, right? So we see like the crepe with the yellow and black striped snake, poor crepe. This yellow and black is to tell you I'm very dangerous. Leave me alone. So. Yeah, but it's more not so much to other snakes, but to like mammals such as us that may try to catch one.
Just to be careful about their color.
Yeah,
like
so it's a warning.
Colors,
it's a warning. Yes.
Yes.